Hello, and welcome to another episode of Now About That with James and Sarah. I'm James.
And I'm Sarah.
And on this week's episode, sorry. On this week's fairly packed episode, we'll be looking at the women who led the women's suffrage movement. We'll explore a little bit about the Chicana Movement, which Sarah so greatly brought up. And then we'll also dive into a couple of We'll dive into the wonderful world of women-owned businesses to highlight some great companies with a purpose. One thing I wanted to kind of highlight before we do get started is I wanted to make sure that we include in these discussions and the ones we had previously during Black History Month that we're by no means saying that this history and this information should be relegated to just these months, but we do want to just highlight this information for both Black history and the struggle for women to get and maintain their rights as a continuous discussion, and if forgotten, will only cause issues within these groups. And these rights and fights are things that impact everyone, and we all should be coming together to support every day, not just these 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah was yawning in that.
Yes, but I heard, and I agree.
But before we dive into that, you want to do a quick catch up and see how it's going as I mess with my hair?
Sure. I was just messing with mine too. So I look bald because of how dark the background is. I'm not bald. I haven't shaved my head yet. I'm not really okay, but I'm okay.
You're getting through.
I am chugging right along.
It's been an annoying 2 days for me, although I finally had some final closure and completion on my car. Frustrating.
Woo!
Those of you that are just tuning in and haven't listened, I've been having an issue with my car and trying to get it fixed at the dealership that I usually go to. And yesterday I dropped it off to hopefully get the last couple of things that I asked them to do fixed. I gave them 5 things I wanted them to do, 2 of which they finished yesterday, and then 3 they forgot to do, and I had to take it back in this morning. But the good thing is, when I took it back in, he was like, it looks like you're ready for brake service too. And what I'm going to do is just throw that in for free. So they serviced my brakes for free. I think it was like $150 or something like that he did for free because I was inconvenienced. So that was nice.
I love that you were serviced for being inconvenienced.
I mean, I usually I'm one of those people that if it's something like this where it's a lot of money and they were supposed to do something and they didn't, I'll say something and I'll usually get my way. Mm-hmm. If it's something small like they put cilantro on my food at dinner or something like that, I'll let that go. It's not that big of a deal. But when I ended up almost spending $2,000 on a car, and yesterday it was $1,400, and they didn't do everything I asked them to do, then I'm gonna say something.
Yeah.
Same thing with phones. Like, I got my phone updated, and they always charge an upgrade fee. One quick tip is if you call them and ask them to remove it, more than likely they will. So if you ever upgrade your phone and they charge you an upgrade fee, if you call them and ask them to remove it, and you're nice about it, that's kind of key, they will more than likely be able to remove it for you.
Nice.
So that's enough about that. Would you like to get into the topic today?
Yep.
So, do you have anything you want to start with?
I pulled up this article from hiplatina.com about Chicana activists and the Chicano movement.
Okay.
That I thought would be interesting, and I am going to send it to you now. But I knew of the Chicana movement somewhat before taking my Mexican American lit class, as well as my other class. I don't remember the name of the class now. Wow. Brain. But anyway, so the Chicana movement was born out of the Chicano movement, which also sprouted movements like the Brown Berets, which was the Hispanic Latinx version of the Black Berets. They also worked with the Black Berets during the civil rights movement. The biggest things about the Chicana movement was that it was centered around how women within the Chicano movement were being discriminated against in the Chicano movement. So like
Yeah.
women were on the front lines helping fight for, labor unions and labor laws like Cesar Chavez, but weren't getting any credit or being heard. So they started their own movement.
Yeah. So I read something from, I think it was on Encyclopedia. Yeah. That said the Chicana movement began to develop more steam while at the first annual Denver Youth Conference on March 27th through the 31st in 1969. The women behind the Chicana movement began to question their involvement in the Chicano movement, and this fuel was added to the fire with a declaration from some members of the Chicano movement that the Chicana women do not want to be liberated. So that was like a statement someone said at that conference apparently, and it really like made them kind of like, no, yeah, we do.
They were like, wait a minute, hold
So
up.
then yeah, in the same article it was talking about the brown berets, which you mentioned, and then Estudiantal Chicano de Aztlan, Aztlan, and then La Raza Unida Party is also mentioned in here, which these are just it said that it was just spaces that they developed to challenge gender inequality and sexism.
Yeah. So what's interesting is that the Chicana movement tried really hard to put forth the idea of intersectionality before we really understood what intersectionality was. Like Kimberly Crenshaw is the person who first spoke about intersectionality and feminism, meaning that there are different experiences experienced based on different aspects of your life. So yes, I am an AFAB person and therefore subject to misogyny. I'm on the trans spectrum, so I'm subject to trans misogyny as well, and transphobia and homophobia because I'm a lesbian, so on and so forth. All of those things impact my experience of sexism, but my sexism does not come from a racial place. So women who are not white or AFABs who are not white, their experience is going to be different because often their experiences with sexism or homophobia are also deeply rooted in racial biases.
Yeah, I think that's something that we highlighted before, where it's like everybody has their own experiences, and making sure everyone's experience is highlighted is kind of a key thing in equal rights and equality or equity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Adding those things like that, and highlighting like the Chicano movement that spurred out of the Chicano movement because of those things, even inside of a movement where they're fighting for rights,
Yeah.
there's turmoil and issues where people are being they're they're being, what am I trying to say, Sarah?
I don't know. What are you trying to say?
Um
He's like, wait, did I write this down in the
I
script?
did.
But no, I think
Unequal treatment. So there's that unequal treatment that they're experiencing inside those movements. Sorry, I found it.
yeah, no, you're good. I had an idea that that might be where you were going. One of the reasons that that Chicana feminism in particular um came out of the Chicano movement rather than just becoming part of the overall women's movement that was occurring at the same time was because they felt alienated in those white feminist spaces, because white feminism has a tendency to just focus on, well, we're all women, so we all have to fight together. But the truth is that yes, while many of us are women and identify as women, we all have our unique experiences based on other factors, and it can't just be, oh, well, we're women, so we all have to stick together. Because like, there's some women out there who are pretty shitty that I don't want to stick with them.
Yeah, and it's
J.K.
like,
Rowling.
right, and I think, well, yeah, J.K. Rowling. I think that's interesting because it's like what I I see that, and it's an issue, and it's like, why is it an issue? And then you have like these women that are like, I don't care if I have rights. Like, I want my husband to do everything. My husband will do it. That's fine. He'll take care of it. But it's like, okay, that's fine for you, but what about for your daughter or for your child or for other people that aren't you, that aren't your child?
Yeah.
Why is that enough for you? Like, but
Right.
that's always my thing. I always question, why are you okay with having less when you could have more?
Right. There's a line
Or equal when you
from
could have equal, sorry.
yeah, yeah. There's a line that always sticks with me, and it's from a musical. It's from Yentl. Barbara Streisand, she sings this one song called Piece of Sky, and she's like, with all there is, why would you settle for just a piece of sky?
No.
And I just like that's kind of always influenced my viewpoint on it, is like, with all there is out there, why would I just settle for a tiny piece?
Yeah, I think that kind of like hits, and I said the same thing in like my bio on our website. I always heard when I was little from my dad and my family, it was like, oh, well, that's for rich people. We're not rich people. We can't experience that. It's like, why can't we?
Right.
It's like that's for those people. We don't have access to it. It's like, but we should.
Right. We should be
Like,
able to
why?
create access to it.
Yeah, why don't we have access for it?
Right.
What is keeping us from getting that access, and what do we need to do to get it?
Yeah.
I've never
Yeah. I
understood
remember
that.
hearing similar as a kid of like,
Yeah.
we don't have the money for that. And I think I've mentioned briefly on here that like when I was a little kid, there were things that I thought only rich people ate, like fruit by the foot, for example. I
Yeah.
was like, that was always way too expensive for us, So like I was always like, if I went over to somebody's house and they had fruit by the foot, I was like, oh, they must be rich because they have this.
Yeah. So getting back to the Chicana movement, I also saw something in there about, and I think you, in the article that you sent over there, I scrolled through it and I see some of the people that are in this list that I'm looking at, like friend Francisca Flores, the founder of Commission Feminal Mexicana, Anna Niento Gomez, who is a student at Long Beach and an educator in Southern California. And then the last one on the list that I looked at is Marta Cortera,
Yeah.
a Texas-based author of Diosa y Hembra. I'm not very good at Spanish, so I apologize. And a participant in the Mujeres por la Raza Unida, a newspaper in New Mexico. And they were highlighted in this list as prominent activists
Yeah.
and in the Chicana movement, and wrote like poetry and essays critiquing the unequal treatment by men in the movement, and then racism in U.S. and racism in the other mainstream women's movements, like you were kind of talking about.
Hmm. Yeah. Fun fact about Marta Cotera is that she's also a librarian.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's important for me with my little library degree. But yes, one that I really wanted to highlight was, let me scroll down here, Gloria Anzaldúa. And she was one of the writers that we focused on for the class that I was in. We had her book, The Borderlands, which was about existing along the border of Texas and Mexico, and how different life is out there versus closer, like further inland. And she's also queer, so she was pretty awesome. The book was very interesting. The parts that I read for class, I have the whole book that I plan on finishing reading. So
I think it's always interesting to see about like the mix of people that are included, and like how their different experiences tailor like how like what activists what parts of the activism fight that they actually like get into and pay closer attention to.
yeah.
um I think the thing that I wanted to kind of point out earlier, or that you shared on TikTok earlier, is that video of the trans woman sitting eating dinner or lunch,
Yes.
and she like I don't know what happened before the video, but like it looked like she was just sitting there eating lunch with her dog, and the woman that was sitting next to her, not too far from her, started just freaking out on her, and she basically said, "Oh well, I'm a what was it?
A turf,
A
but
turf."
she said she said it wrong because she said that
Yeah,
she was a trans eccentric radical feminist, which is actually trans exclusionary radical feminist. And by the way, if you identify as a turf, you're not a fucking feminist, so you can just shut the fuck up. But anyway, um, but yeah, no, in the video, the woman she's just sitting there, she's enjoying her lunch with her dog, and this other woman off screen starts harassing her. And at one point in the video, I was just like, okay, but you're over here saying that you get to be whatever you want to be, and this other woman gets to be whatever she wants to be. So then leave her alone. Like,
yeah, and the person that we're referring to, the trans woman, is her name is Lily Tino, and it's at Lily Tino underscore is her, and I'll link it in the pod or the episode.
but yeah, I was just
Yeah,
like,
it's
okay,
very weird. Like, how can you say you're a feminist? It's kind of the same thing that they say in the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like
mm,
you can say that you are for Black lives, but you can't be transphobic.
yeah,
There are Black trans people, so you're not for Black lives.
yeah, you're only for specific Black lives, which was the main reason that Chicanas split off and had their own feminist movement, was because when they were trying to work with white feminists, they were met with that same kind of thing of like, okay, but we experience this differently because we're not white. And white women were just like, well, we're all women, we all experience this. And it's just like, well, I mean, yes, that's technically true. We do all experience this, but we all experience it differently based on different factors.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole like Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. It's like, yes, saying all lives matter, like that's, I mean, yes, all lives matter, obviously, but
Right.
you don't want to, like, you want to highlight a specific person or a specific group that's being tormented and attacked at the time.
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason behind that statement, or those types of movement, like this one, the Chicana movement. It's like they're trying to highlight and make sure that it's not just women's rights, it's all women's rights, and in this particular group, highlighting the fact that there is disparity and issues within the women's rights movements.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of disparities. That's why we end up with TERFs. But again,
Yeah,
if you identify as a TERF, you're not a feminist because
I
you're
think
not
it's
here for all
radical.
women.
Yeah, I think the radical part is the key portion, because I don't think it you can never, I don't know that there's a good, you can't be radical and be make positive change. I don't think.
I'm gonna disagree. Just because historically speaking, radical movements are generally what has propelled change forward. Revolution unfortunately requires blood. But the thing is that you can be a radical feminist and also be an intersectional feminist at the same time. Like you can't, the thing with radical feminism is that we tend to focus on the very small minority of radical feminists who were all men are evil and there is no such thing as a good man and blah 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 blah, and which is part of the reason why feminism often gets the branding of being, a man-hating movement. Because I mean, those women, their experiences with men is what created that for them, and I understand that.
Yeah,
But like, that's not the whole movement. That was one section of the movement.
and I think that's what I mean by you can't be like positive. There's very few times when there's a positive outcome to radical, like the word radical, because you have things like that where it's like it's so far into like away from kind of like the main point of it.
Yeah.
You're adding in things that, like, you can have like radical like movements, like not movements but like demonstrations,
Mm-hmm.
and that is what I still hesitate to use the word radical, because I think to me there is a negative connotation with the word radical, because you do have those, like, where what you were saying, where it's like all men are evil, or like, um what is it, all police are terrible. It's like, well, that's not most.
Well,
A good majority, yes, a good majority of
no,
them are evil, yes, and
here's
but
the thing about ACAB, though. All cops are bastards. Okay. Here's the thing about ACAB is that while you may be a good person, you are a person who is still upholding laws and a government that is purposefully trying to destroy the people. You are no longer for the people, ergo, all cops are bastards.
I think the issue with that is they're not all cops are doing that. They're a lot of the cops are just, that's like, they're just following the rules, and it's not the police officer, the person's fault. It's the system's fault.
But it's a job that they chose, and it's something that they're upholding. Police officers actually are not here to protect the public. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is like we have this viewpoint in our minds of like, oh, police officers are here to protect the public, so there are good police officers out there. But they're actually not there to protect the public. They're there to protect the government's interests. Ergo, they may be good people outside of their job, but every cop is a bastard because their job is to suppress the people.
Yeah, we are getting off topic a little bit, Sarah.
This is be a very interesting episode.
I know, yeah. So did you have more stuff you wanted to talk about? Did you want to look at some more people on this list for the Chicana movement?
I just wanted to highlight a couple. You've already highlighted a few of them. I wanted to, where is she? I wanted to specifically highlight Gloria Arianes, who was a Tongva Chicana grandmother known for her role as a Brown Beret member during the East LA walkouts and the Chicano movement. And Gloria managed the El Barrio free clinic offering medical support to all during that time.
I was just reading about Dolores Huerta, and it says she's is the most well-known name in the Chicanx activism, fighting for the rights of migrant farm workers. And she co-founded the Stockton chapter of the Community Service Organization in 1955. And in 1962, with Cesar Chavez, she co-founded the National Farm Workers Association, or NFWA, which became the United Farm Workers Association Union, UFW.
Yeah, and then speaking of Cesar Chavez, his wife Helen, they both fought for the rights of migrant farm workers, especially in California, where migrant workers were making like less than $5 a year, something like that. They were making so little and working so much. And Helen and Cesar Chavez were very instrumental in fighting against that and creating the community service organizations and creating the National Farm Workers Associations and so on and so forth, so that migrant workers also received fair pay for fair work, which we still struggle with today, but we're apparently better than we used to be.
I think even in the service industry is weird. So like Ryan works, and again, we're getting off topic, but like Ryan works as a waiter. They don't get paid, like, they get paid dollars. Like,
yeah,
but they get tips, and that's why. But it's like, but what happens if you don't get very many tips? Like, you have to meet a certain threshold before the company is required to pay you minimum wage. And
yeah,
as we've discussed in previous episodes, like, even minimum wage right now, you can't live off of minimum wage for anything.
Yeah, it's interesting because I learned recently that working at the massage parlor that I work at, that the massage therapists and the estheticians, like, they make good money, but they only get paid if they're booked. So if you didn't get booked, sucks to be you. You're not getting paid.
What is that? What was that called? There's a term for it specifically. Not contract workers.
Like freelancing.
No, like gig workers. That's what it's called, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah. So it's just like, which I mean, some of the therapists never have to worry about that because they're always booked. But like some of the estheticians don't always get booked. Not everybody wants a facial all the time.
Yeah.
So like, if you're not booked, you're not getting paid for that hour. And then like there's nothing else for them to be doing that they would get paid for. So they just sit around and don't get paid. I was like, I could not do that.
I mean, if you had a good business model, you would work with your massage therapist and your estheticians and be like, can we put together like a package where if they pay for this, they get like a percentage off or something. Like if they get a package where they get a massage and then at the end, like they wrap it up with the facial, or they start with the facial and then move into a massage, make it like a spa day package or something like that. Then, I mean, if you had a good business model and did that, then that would be one way to fix that.
Yeah, let's not talk about our business model because it's not great.
Yeah. Well, do you want to get back to the is there anything else you wanted to look at before we jumped into women who who fought for the right to vote?
No, I think we're good. I'm ready.
So I have just like a little scripted part, and then we can kind of break off and talk about whoever. I'm sorry, I like to script things, so
No,
I know I get everything in what I wanted to say.
No judgments.
So this is all about women's suffrage fighters. So the first time women were allowed to vote in any U.S. election was in 1920. However, the fight for women's right to vote started about 100 years prior to this. A fight in which several of the key activists and freedom fighters were no longer alive to see the fruits of their hard work and dedication. And today we're going to take a look at a few of them who led the charge for equal rights in the U.S. and access to voting in elections. And the first one that is on this list from the History Channel, is Susan B. Anthony, which I always knew the name Susan B. Anthony because there's like the Susan B. Anthony coin and all that stuff. But I didn't know very much about it. And I don't know if maybe I wasn't paying attention in history or it just wasn't covered that much. I'm not a huge history person, so
it wasn't really covered.
Yeah. Which it's not right, but it makes sense in the town that we lived in and the state that we lived in.
Yeah, the high school that we went to, that makes total sense.
Yeah. And the one history teacher I know I had to deal with, I hated him. No name, Sarah.
No, I wasn't gonna say any names. I was gonna say I got along really well with the majority of my teachers, but the teacher I hated the most was the government teacher.
Maybe I'm thinking of the government teacher. Now that I think about it, I don't even remember who my history teacher was.
Because the government teacher was the one who would give you extra credit if you could prove that you killed a cat.
I think he also was caught drinking in class.
That doesn't surprise me. He was also a huge misogynist, so like he was fucking terrible.
But what do you know about Susan B. Anthony?
What do I know about Susan B. Anthony? Well, little kid Sarah would be able to tell you all sorts of cool things about Susan B. Anthony because I was obsessed with her when I was a kid. I'm old now and so don't remember half the things I learned. I know that she was instrumental in the fight for women having the ability to vote. I know that she considered herself an abolitionist. And I know that it was a rough time because I know that the women in the suffrage movement often got harassed by police, wrongfully incarcerated, so on and so forth. So I know that she went through like a lot of torture with the police as well.
I think one of the things that I thought was interesting just reading this article from the History Channel is she actually started, like the reason she started becoming more active in the women's suffrage movement was because she was pushing for more regulation around alcohol in the area and public drunkenness in her area of Rochester, New York. And the politicians and people in her area didn't take her serious because she was fighting for, quote, women's issues and advocating on behalf of women. And that was kind of like, based on this article, it said that was the tipping point of her needing to do something so that she could have her voice heard through that right to vote.
Right. Now, it is important for us to point out at this moment that, and we've talked about this before, is yes, women earned the right to vote in, the 1920s. However, not all women in the United States had access to voting.
Yeah.
We've talked about before, but I'm just like reminding everybody
I
that
think
we
at first it
were
was
aware.
like you had to be married, right?
Yeah,
Like
something like that.
you
Had
had
to
to be
be,
married to a man that owned land.
yeah. There was a lot of tricky, and there's still people who are not able to access their right to vote. But I mean, it, makes me very angry.
Sounds very frustrating.
It is extremely frustrating. It's just like, you'd think that we'd come a long way, and in many, many ways we have, but at the same time, we still don't have marriage equality for people with disabilities. We still have people who can't access their right to vote. Like, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, I am a little confused by this article, and I'm gonna read. There's like two sentences. Yeah, they're both just one sentence. So there's two sentences that I don't understand because they say, like, at the end it says the exact same thing. Oh, I guess I should probably. So, though Anthony was dedicated to the abolitionist cause and genuinely believed that black men and women deserved the right to vote, after the Civil War ended, she refused to support any suffrage amendments to the Constitution unless they granted the franchise to women as well as men. This led to the dramatic Shiism, I'm assuming that's what it is, SCHISM,
I mean, that's what I would think.
in the women's right movement between activists like Anthony, who believed that no amendment granting the vote to Black Americans should be ratified unless it also granted the vote to women. And then it said proponents of this point of view formed a group called the National Women's Suffrage Association. And then the next sentence, it says, opposing them were those who were willing to support an immediate expansion of the citizenship rights for former enslaved persons, even if that it meant they had to keep fighting for universal suffrage. Proponents of this point of view formed a group called the American Women's Suffrage Association. That's the same thing. Oh, no, it's not. National Women's Suffrage. Okay. All right. That makes more
Sometimes
sense.
you just have to read it out loud.
And I did. I thought I did earlier, but apparently not. There's instead of national, it's American Women's Suffrage Association. Okay. Oh, sorry. I did want to point out for the Chicana movement, going back to that real quick.
Yep.
I wanted to kind of see what it was or how it was still today, or what was still included in it. And from the article from Encyclopedia, I think is where it was from, there was just a statement closer to the end that said the Chicana movement continued into the 21st century while activists and academics continued examination of the impact of race, class, gender, and sexuality on women's lives, while also advocating for more just social conditions in the U.S. And with that, I'm going to need to pause because the little man just got up, so I will be right back.
Okay.
All right, so for us, we're back. It's been like 5 minutes, but for you guys, it's going to be like no time because I paused the recording. So we're jumping right back in. So we were just talking about Susan B. Anthony, and we'll come to the video you just sent me later. But one thing I wanted to point out that I think is kind of interesting, and I didn't realize until I just read this again, is you can kind of see Susan B. Anthony as a not an abolitionist, but an obstructionist at some point of the 15th Amendment, just based on that thing where she said she doesn't it says there no amendment granting the vote to Black Americans should be ratified unless it also granted the vote to women. So it's kind of like it goes against kind of what they're fighting for. Basically, it's like, well, saying, well, they can't have it because I can't have it,
Right.
which is weird, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I just thought
I
I'd point it out, and I was like,
I also don't like that. It's actually one of the biggest marks against her, I guess is what I'm gonna say there. That's not what I wanted to say, but I can't remember what I wanted to say. But like she she was doing so good, and then she was like, no.
I mean, it's kind of like what you said last week with Virginia Woolf. It's like she's a great writer, and there's all this good stuff, and then it's like she's also racist.
Yeah.
And
There's also other things that are not great.
I mean, you could also kind of say the same thing about, and I'm not gonna justify. What is her name? You said it earlier. The author, J.K. Rowling.
Oh, J.K. Rowling.
You could say the same thing, but really, I think she's just garbage all around. Like, she wrote a series of interesting books, but like, what else has she written so far? And then she used all those billions of dollars to leverage anti-trans and racist movements. Anyways, back to women's suffrage. We keep getting off topic easily today.
You know what? I think that's okay though. I think that's okay. Because we're covering a lot of really cool stuff right now.
Yeah. And then further on in this list, there's Alice Paul, who was the leader of the most militant wing of women's suffrage movement. And it says she joined the suffragist Emmeline Pankhurst, radical confrontational women's social and political union, and learned how to use civil disobedience and other unladylike tactics to draw attention to her cause. And she returned to the United States in 1910 and brought those militant tactics to the well-established National American Women's Suffrage Association. And as the chair of the NAWSA's Congressional Committee, she began to agitate for the passage of a federal suffrage amendment to the Constitution like the one her hero, Susan B. Anthony, had wanted so badly to see, which she was still alive when they passed the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote, whereas Susan B. Anthony had died, I think it was just a couple of years beforehand, 1906. She was also 86 years old, which back in the 1800s and early 1900s, that's pretty old.
Yeah. I just found an article about that video that I sent you. Yeah, and it's also from the History Channel.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about the TikTok you just sent? Because it kind of goes into, like, it kind of goes in line with what you were saying, that you didn't even realize, but people don't realize that these types of things still happen today.
Yeah. But it also ties into what I was saying about when women were first like trying to get the right to vote, the police, that there was torture involved as well. Like, some of those women experienced torture at the hands of the police. It also goes in line with that. So while the lovely James was off walking the Bobo, I was scrolling through TikTok, as I do, and I came across this TikTok from the History Channel talking about America's forgotten mass imprisonment of women for if they were believed to be quote unquote sexually immoral. So under this plan of government that they had, women could be detained for sitting in a restaurant alone, changing jobs, or for no reason at all.
Not even just like detained. I think it says in here that they can like search them and like do a physical examination of them.
Yeah, so it says nearly 24 women were rounded up by authorities on a single day in Sacramento, California in 1919. Margaret Hennessy was one of them. She was apprehended while walking with her sister to the meat market. Mrs. Hennessy had been staying in town recovering from influenza at the home of her sister. And then, as the two women were walking to the market, they were approached by an officer and other members of Sacramento's quote unquote morals squad that had been formed that very morning. And they said that they were suspicious characters. So they then took her and forcibly probed and prodded her genitalia looking for STIs. And like, yeah,
Well,
like this was happening.
let's clarify. They didn't. They took her to a doctor, and the doctor did.
Yeah, but
But yes,
is that
against
a
her will.
real doctor though?
I don't know. That's just what the thing
That
said.
I know. That's what I'm saying though. Is like, is it a real doctor or is it a doctor?
Yeah.
Anyway, so from the 1910s through the 1950s, and in some places into the 1960s and 1970s, tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of women, American women, were detained and forcibly examined for STIs.
Which is crazy. Because it's like an STI. You don't have to be sexually unfaithful to get an STI.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
your partner can be the one. So, like, are you also... But I guess maybe these... I'm not saying it's okay, but maybe these women weren't married or whatever. Or in committed relationships. But still, that's still not okay. Yeah.
Still though. So it says, if the women tested positive, U.S. officials locked them away in penal institutions with no due process. Obviously, while many records of the program have since been lost or destroyed, women's forced internment could range from a few days to many months. Inside the institutions, they were often injected with mercury and forced to ingest arsenic-based drugs, the most common treatments for syphilis in the early part of the century. And if they misbehaved or if they failed to show proper ladylike deference, these women could be beaten, doused with cold water, thrown into solitary confinement, or even sterilized. And forced sterilization obviously is not that unheard of, because we've been hearing about it with women who are being held captive at the border. So,
Yeah.
but if you keep scrolling down, there's more. Like they blamed women for infecting the troops during World War One.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff on this. Not weird stuff, but interesting. Like, you can see there's a couple of pieces of cartoons
From that time frame.
Yeah, from that time frame. And it's like one where there's three women, two of them that have like their faces are skulls, and one of them has syphilis written across her chest, the other one has gonorrhea written across her chest. And then there's a troop, or a Navy or Army person, guy in uniform, and then a woman who looks like a regular woman, and then like on her dress it just says prostitution. And then behind her there's a sign that says, two girls two girls I know want to meet you in the worst way, basically implying that this man that has on his jacket the young, the brave, the strong, implying that he's part of the military. The women were wanting to infect him with their gonorrhea or syphilis. And then further down, there's another cartoon, which is kind of like the same stuff that they would kind of put out, where it's like the Uncle Sam type of cartoon. It says, she may be a bag of trouble. And then at the bottom it says syphilis gonorrhea. It's just a woman with a beret smoking a cigarette.
Just a regular old woman. Like, but it's so if you scroll further down, it says the police were justified in none of these arrests.
Yeah.
And nearly every person examined and locked up under these laws was a woman. The vague standard of reasonable suspicion enabled officials to pretty much detain any woman they wanted. Records exist in archives to document women being detained and examined for sitting at a restaurant alone, for changing jobs, for being with a man, for walking down a street in a way a male official found suspicious, and often for no reason at all.
Yeah, and then even further down, it talks about how some women were even detained if they refused to have sex with police officers or health officials. And in the 1940s, San Francisco police officers sometimes threatened to have women vagged or vaginally examined if they didn't accede to sexual demands. Women of color or immigrant women in particular were targeted and subjected to higher degree of abuse once they were locked up.
Not shocking.
And then he goes even further to say that even though the enforcement of the American plan ended by the 1970s, there are still similar laws in place today.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's insane that, like, even in the title of this story, Americans Forgotten Mass Imprisonment of Women Believed to be Sexually Immoral. Like, I never knew anything about this, and this is from 2019.
Yeah.
Crazy. Interesting stuff.
Man, sucks out here.
Yeah. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about like wrap it up on a kind of more fun
A
note?
high note.
Yeah, and look into some of the women-owned businesses that we kind of pulled.
Oh, yeah. You may have to send me the link again. Or no, wait. No, don't listen to me.
Never do. I think the funniest one that I saw on this list, so it's a list from CNN called Underscored, and it's 26 women-owned businesses for all your everyday essentials. And there's things like Away, where there's luggage and travel, and like just carry-on luggage and suitcases and stuff like that. There's Otherland, which is a candle company. There's a few jewelry places, like Catbird is a jewelry. Then there's the one that I think is the funniest, Tushy. I didn't realize Tushy was a female-owned business. But I think the cool thing about Tushy is it's not only like a good product. A portion of Tushy profits go to build community toilets, enabling the poor in India to lead healthier, productive, and more dignified lives. So a portion of their proceeds go to help people in India who don't have access to toilets, or clean toilets, I guess. And then further on in this list, there's also Cuyana, I think is how you say it. Cuyana, which is a fashion brand that sells clothing and single origin cashmere cardigan. Beauty Bakery, which is a female owned cosmetics company. Sugar Goop, or no, sorry, Super Goop, not Sugar Goop. Super Goop.
Sugar Goop sounds funnier though.
It does. But it's like face wash and SPF, and I was looking on there earlier while I was sitting waiting for my car to get finished. I was looking on their website, and it's like, it's not just SPF, it's like different types of SPF. So there's like one that makes your skin glow. There's one that mattifies your skin for those like me that have really oily skin. It'll mattify. It doesn't just add on the like layer of goop. But it's lightweight sheer protection that can be used. That can be even used as makeup primer. And then Outdoor Voices is another one on this list, which is kind of workout clothes. Glossier is one that I've heard of before. Looking on this list, I didn't realize it was a female-owned business or founded by a female. But it's a makeup brand, and I think an overall like skincare brand as well. And there's Parachute, which is bed sheets and linens for your bed. Sundays is more of a nail polish type of is a nail polish and hand cream company now. And Bomba Curls is a product that promotes hair health and nourish curls, and it also helps treat alopecia.
Nice.
That's interesting. And Lula Cordero, who is native from Dominican Republic, is the founder.
Love that.
Majori is another jewelry company founded by Nora Sakija. I said that wrong, more than likely. Actually, funny thing, just saw a TikTok earlier that was like this guy working in a business, like working from home or something. And he was like, after a long day of working really hard, I want to splurge and treat myself. And it was he went to Majori and bought I think he bought a ring or something. So I commented and I was like, love this purchasing from women-owned businesses on during Women's History Month.
Yes, love that.
And then there's also Hyperskin, which is again another skin care specifically for hormonal acne and hyperpigmentation. And then I think it's Ojai, Ouai. I don't really know for sure, but it is again another skincare company. And then Jungalow is a home decor company. And I was looking at their on this website or on this in this article. There's these really cool like bookend vases or vases, depending on who you are, that are like, just face like women's faces. They're really cool. And then Brother Vellies is a shoe company. African design practices and techniques alive while creating and sustaining artisanal jobs. And then Dagne Dover. I don't know if that's really how you say it. Dagne Dover.
I was gonna say
Dagne.
Dagny, but
Oh, might be. Looks like it's again a like backpack or like bag company. And then Savage X Fenty, which I'm sure most people know, started by Rihanna.
I love her.
Purely Elizabeth is a nutritional foods company that founder Elizabeth Stein wanted to start a nutritional foods company that was both healthy and tasty. And the picture is chocolate, sea salt, and probiotic cookies. Or no, I think they made cookies out of the granola. Spanx, I didn't realize was founded by a woman. That's cool though. Makes sense.
Founded by a Sarah, no less. So
Sarah
she doesn't
Blakely.
have the H. So
what do you call that, Sarah? Sarah?
the diet soda version.
And then the last couple on this list, there's O'Shea, which is another skincare company founded by a mother-daughter duo. Stasher, which is kind of a really cool company that gets rid of the single-use plastic. So there's instead of using Ziploc bags, there's an option for Ziploc bags. There's an option for bowls and stuff like that. Drunk Girl Designs, which I think is one of the funnier things. And it's art prints, and they even sell oil paintings on there because I was looking at their website, and it's not actually a website. It's a link to an Etsy page.
Yeah. I love the Regina Mean Girls oil painting.
Yeah.
Only $8 though.
For an 8x10, yeah.
Oh, for an 8x10. Okay.
All right. I was looking, and it starts out like that. I was looking at it because I was thinking of like what I could do to kind of buy something from a couple of these places, and I was like, well, I'll look at art because I have some fun art.
Yeah.
And this site has all of the Golden Girls.
Nice.
So I was potentially going to look at getting all of those in like the 11x17, or I could just do 8x10s because I think the 8x10s are $8 or $9 each. And then I would just buy frames for them.
There you go.
And then Nubian Skin is again another not skin care company. It is a lingerie / hosiery company. And then the last one on this list is We the People.
Yes.
Which is a skincare brand founded by Karen Young.
Yep. For luxury razors.
Do any of these sound interesting to you, Sarah? Would you want to buy something from any of these companies? I will say I looked at the prices on a lot of these. They're expensive. Most.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. I would probably buy something from Drunk Girl Designs. Not gonna lie.
It is an Etsy shop too.
Yeah, and it's an Etsy shop. Which, like, I mean, I wish I could get my Etsy shop off the ground, but anyway.
You should look into Fiverr.
Fiverr?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Like I'm not big on facial care and whatnot, which I mean I should be, but I'm not.
Yeah,
so
I'm not a huge skincare person either.
All the skincare stuff, and I'm just like, I get it. We want to be pretty, but I'm a goblin and I want to stay that way. But I really like Catbird, and I thought that I had purchased something from Catbird once, but I'm not seeing it now. So
I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna read this little snippet that it has in here for Tushy because I think it's hilarious.
He
Uh,
wants Tushy.
I don't want one. I actually have a bidet. I just haven't installed it. Um, like one of the ones that go on the seat.
Yeah, yeah.
So in this article, it says, upgrade your intimate number 2 experience with Tushy, a brand committed to giving you your cleanest bum yet. Founded by Mickey Agrawal. I'm sorry, Mikey. Tushy is known for its bidet attachments that quickly turn your bathroom into a spa. In fact, we believe the Tushy Classic 3.0, which is currently on sale for $99, is one of the best bidets under $100 for a simple-to-use clean. You can check out our full review here, and then there's a link to their full review of Tushy. I will not be buying it. I just think it's hilarious. But I did look it up. Oh, we already talked about Tushy. So there's like a good cause behind what they are doing too. It's not just comical. But then I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these companies that, and I only looked at 3 of them, one of them being Tushy, that have like a reason behind their brand. So Jungalow is also working on sustainability, and they use sustainable materials and packaging. So they natural, recycled, recyclable, and compostable materials. Their ceramics are all non-toxic finishes, and waterless dyeing, finishing, and painting to actively conserve water. All of their textiles are sustainably sourced, and they give back. So with every purchase, they plant 2 trees as well.
Nice.
And then the other one that I wanted to talk about, actually no, this one doesn't have anything about, never mind.
Okay.
Well, that one didn't have anything in it about ooh, this mirror is really nice, and it's only $180.
Nice.
Anyways,
Anyways,
that was really all I wanted to talk about today. We kind of got off topic a little bit, which is totally fine. But we covered everything I wanted to talk about this week.
cool. Go team.
What are you doing this weekend?
Well, as long as I'm not dying tomorrow, we're gonna go to the Renaissance Fair, which is where we were going to go today.
No.
But then I was throwing up, so that didn't happen. So
Last week, Ryan was like, "Oh, I bought tickets to that thing," and I may have talked about this already.
tickets.
So last year, I bought tickets to this like handmade. It was like a fair, like a craft fair, where it was all things from local vendors that were handmade, like woodwork and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, I got tickets for that this year." I was like, "Okay, cool." We went, and it was just a giant thrift store. I was like, this isn't what it was last year.
Oof.
And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I thought it was a thrift, like it said thrift store last year. It was like mainly like vintage," and I use air quotes for that because I
Yeah.
don't know how vintage it actually was. Vintage clothing and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not. While this was fun to get out and actually do something, I'm not into any of this. But we walked around it for a little bit and got a free drink, which I got a Topo Chico, and he got some coffee from a local vendor.
Oh, Topo Chico.
Topo Chico, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I was like,
I like it. I think I've had it before, but I do. I mean, I like mineral water, and it was pretty
yeah,
good.
it's pretty popular here.
Yeah, it's pretty popular now. Like, it's kind of taking the place of Perrier.
Yeah.
Perrier was usually like the biggest. That's the main mineral water that people usually ask for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? What are you gonna do at the Ren Fair?
Um, Stare at all the cool looking people and wish that I had a costume.
Oh, so funny thing about Ren Fair, the Bob and Monet were talking about that this week on their podcast. Bob was saying that they wanted to buy a sword from someone at a Ren Fair because they really like swords.
Hmm.
They were like, I just want it. Like, I'm never gonna use it. I just want it.
I just wanted to say that I have it.
Yeah, like it looks cool. That's all I
Yeah.
want it for.
Yeah. No, I've never been to a Ren Fair, so I was really excited. I was very, very disappointed this morning.
Yeah.
But we're gonna try again tomorrow. So
Yeah. Make sure to take plenty of pictures and send them to Sam because I'm sure Sam would love it. She loves Ren Fairs.
oh yeah, Sam's gonna have a field day. I'll send all the pictures.
It's rainy and gross here today.
Oh no.
I mean, it's not gross. It's just chilly and raining, so it's not fun.
Right. I don't know what it's like outside. I have barely left my room. Let me see. Let me see if this will tell me what it's like outside. Apparently the temperatures are currently sitting at 87 and our temps are supposed to quote unquote plummet tomorrow.
That's fun.
So maybe cold at the Ren Fair.
We're at 37. And there are supposed to be wind gusts of up to 24 miles per hour.
Dang. Oh yeah, it's only supposed to be in the 70s tomorrow. But it's also gonna be sunny, so it'll be fine. Any exciting stuff going on for you besides editing the podcast?
Not really. I ordered some new shoes. I ordered my very first pair of Birkenstock shoes.
Wow.
But they're boots.
But they're boots. I didn't know Birkenstock made boots.
Yeah, I think they're a newer design. What's crazy is they were on sale and I still had to pay $150 for them.
Jesus.
But I was excited because I didn't have to pay as much as I was thinking I was going to pay for my car to get fixed, even though I did pay over $2,000 almost. So I was like, I'll splurge and buy some shoes. And bought a pair of $150 boots.
Is it weird that I'm just picturing sandals with a boot top?
They're not sandals with a boot top.
That's all I think about when I think about Birkenstocks, is sandals. So I'm just like, okay, so sandals, and then the boot top part.
Birkenstocks. I'm gonna show them to you.
He's gonna show them to me. Oh my goodness.
I like them a lot. I'm really excited.
Well, obviously you like them a lot. You paid a lot. Sorry, guys.
There
No.
are some, however, that do look like what you're talking about. Yeah, I'll share my screen so you can see what I'm.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised. I gotta take a shower.
See?
Okay. All right. Those aren't bad.
I like them a lot.
Obviously, you bought them.
They're kind of shaped like a Birkenstock, though.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with because I actually like Birkenstocks.
I missed my Birkenstock type sandals that I used to have. I had to throw them away. They were completely falling apart.
I was gonna say I like this darker brown color that's called mocha, but it doesn't have the cork exposed. It's a black sole.
Yeah.
I like the cork better. That was it.
Okay.
Other than that, I'm sure Ryan and I will go and get lunch tomorrow or something. And then I don't have any schoolwork, which is fun because school ended last week.
Woo!
Which I am excited about. My next class starts this Wednesday, which I'm okay with.
There you go.
I didn't have anything to do for school stuff, so I was able to kind of relax a little bit today, other than having to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go and take my car to have something that should have been fixed yesterday. Well, ready to call it a podcast?
I think we're going to call it a podcast.
All right, so I'll do my scripted close. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Now About That with James and Sarah. If you like this episode, please like, comment, follow, and subscribe. Please leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, as this will help get this podcast out to more people and help us grow. Feel free to follow us on social media. Our Instagram handle is @NowAboutThatPod. If there's a specific topic that you would like us to discuss on the podcast, feel free to email us at nowaboutThatPod@gmail.com or visit our website at www.nowaboutthatproductions.com and add your contact information into the contact us section and whatever you would like us to discuss on the podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you have a great week, since this will be coming out on a Monday. And Sarah, hopefully you have a good weekend and enjoy the Ren Fair.
Thanks. You have a good weekend too.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.